Hi, I'm Ellen at Blackfilm, where you can find the latest about Blackfilm news, exclusives, and reviews. I'm joined by my co-host Hakeem Graham. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Very well.
We have a full agenda.
Yes, we do.
Lots to chat about.
Lots.
Starting with Janelle Monáe's new horror film, Antebellum. The trailer is out, and it is good. It's directed by Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz. It's starring Mark Richardson II, Kiersey Clemons, Gabourey Sidibe, and Tongai Chirisa. The premise has me clutching my pearls. Can I just say that? Because, right, so it's centered around this African-American woman who's a activist, successful author, and she is trapped in a mind-bending reality that has her shifting between the 1800s and present day. Like, can you just let that sink in for 2.5 seconds?
I'm just afraid that I would need to seek psychiatric help immediately. She is going between slavery and in the fields to back to her apartment in present time.
Okay.
That is a time warp beyond belief.
Right, so I'm going to piggyback that, right? It's a 21st century woman who's forced to experience the antebellum era, like you said, plantation era, knowing its legacy in contemporary American society. Like that's the equivalent of me sitting here right now, and then in 2 seconds, I'm back in a cotton field, and that's my reality.
I don't think that's, no.
Can you just wrap
I can't see that. I would definitely be, I'd probably be dead in 2.5 seconds.
Can you imagine? So that's what's so exciting about this movie, because I can't wait to see how she gets out of that, right? Because she not only has to save herself, she's tasked with saving her people.
Right, and without looking really crazy in the present time, right?
Right,
because,
no.
I mean, everybody doesn't get what her experience is.
Yeah.
And then she has to explain that without seemingly being put in the science asylum.
Exactly.
I think this is an interesting film from a psychological perspective. It's a psychological thriller for me. Actually, being African American, that could take you.
Yeah.
That could take you for a long loop.
And the trailer, I think Janelle Monáe was the perfect person to play this. And just based on the trailer, having not seen the movie yet, which comes out April 24th, she, in the trailer, delivered such a believable performance that I can't wait to see it because of her. Never mind the complexity of the plot, but because it's her.
Yes, she definitely has a stage presence. She has, when she sings, it's like she takes you on a journey as well, right?
So can you imagine what that looks like?
Could you imagine what that looks like on a film?
Right.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I love that this is her first lead role, and it's this movie.
Right.
Right? And not only is it directed by the two gentlemen I mentioned, but it's also produced by the same guys from Get Out and Us.
Recipe for success.
And what I love about them, they have this kind of stuck and can't get out theme in their movies. It's been very synonymous in Get Out, in Us, and now in this. I feel like they're telling us something without telling us something.
That is psychological warfare on your emotions and your being. I mean, again, as you mentioned the slavery part, and you mentioned the Us scenes of the movie in terms of how people are stuck in their situations. People can relate to that. You know, everybody's stuck in
on so many different scales.
And different levels.
Yeah. Yeah, and one last thing is this reminds me of Octavia Butler's Kindred.
Okay.
Because it's the same premise. It's a striking resemblance, because it's also an African-American woman that's traveling back in time, but her present day, I think it's 1976, and she travels back to 1815.
Well, that's just as traumatic.
Right. Either way you slice it, it's traumatic. I concur with that. So again, it comes out April 24th. Can't wait to see it. Looking forward to seeing my girl Janelle Monáe do her thing as per usual.
Oh yes, and she is beautiful, so I can't wait.
Yes, for sure.
That leads us into another black film sort of animation. This is Wings of Fire, a collaboration between Ava DuVernay and Warner Brothers Animation. This family TV series is going to be about a life of dragons, war and factions, and epic treks. I think from a perspective from black people, we're not used to seeing animations so much so about our stories. And this, I think Ava will bring a lot to this TV series.
I can't wait to see what that looks like. I love that she's crossing so many genres in her career. Like now she's dabbling in animation. What's that going to look like? I love that this reminds me of Game of Thrones, but the PG version, minus the sex and the gore and the violence. Like kids can watch this and enjoy this because it's dragons. It's a world ruled by dragons.
Right.
It's 7 dragon tribes that kind of have to get their ish together, and
Right.
someone saves the day, or 5 people save the day.
I mean, yeah. Remember, these are 15 epic novels. You got 4 short stories. You got a lot of meat here, and you got a lot to work with. And I think Ava's going to do a great job because she does a lot with a little. So she has a lot to deal with here.
That's a good way to put it.
So yeah. So I think going forward, she's going to develop a brand for herself that's unbeatable.
Yeah.
I think because she's, like you said, stretching herself out, and by all means, that's impressive for me. She's still Black Girl Magic for me.
All day. And just really quickly, this is based on a New York Times bestseller and USA Today bestseller book series, right?
T. Sutherland.
That's right.
Yes, that's true.
So I'm excited to see how that translates.
I'm actually going to go see this. I'm going to watch this. I'm probably going to tape it though.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah, because it's a TV series. We can do
Yes.
that. We can do. God bless TV DVR. Let me just say.
Yes.
I'd be lost without it. Next is True to the Game 2, which is directed by Jamal Hill. This is a sequel. The original came out in 2017, and the sequel stars Vivica A. Fox. It stars Erica Peoples. It stars Andrew Fuller. It stars Little Mama, Waka Flocka. It's a fully loaded cast.
Yes, it is.
And I remember watching the original, and I actually enjoyed it. And so the sequel picks up a year later from the original. And in the original, Columbus Short was the main.
Right, he was the main character.
He was the main character, and he dies in the end. So it picks up after his death with his girlfriend now having to move from Philly to, I think, LA or New York.
Both. I think she went to both.
Right. And she's trying to figure out her life and, kind of get over Philly, but Philly can't quite leave her alone.
Yeah, you could take the girl out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the girl. Huh?
You cannot. And the thing with Quadir, he was heavy into the drug game.
Right.
And so it's all those elements kind of coming after her and following her to try to get some money
And I think it's interesting where Timmy's in this film because it reminds us of power and his role in power, and he brings a little grittiness to this movie, or this series, excuse me. I think I'm interested. I didn't see it, but as I read about it and I looked at the trailers, I'm digging it. I'm actually digging it.
I want to see where they go with this.
I want to see where they go with it, just because the first series, and I love Columbus Short, so that's going to be interesting. And I'm interested in seeing this Jeremy Meeks, Mr. Gangsta himself.
Pretty boy with the blue eyes that came out of prison, became a model, and now he's acting.
Hey.
That blows my mind.
He's going to come up.
I hope he has a speaking part in this, because he's nice to look at. What's he saying, though?
Okay. Oh.
That remains to be seen.
Yes.
That remains to be seen. But moving on, yeah.
Next up is Fruits of the Heart, written and directed by Coke Daniels. Clifton Powell, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Dorian Wilson, another film by Little Mama.
She's busy.
She's getting around. Just to name a few people in this film, right? This film is about a mother and daughter who has this tumultuous relationship. They get into this like hate-love relationship, but as they grow together, they seem to bond more, and they go through these trials and tribulations about relationships and dealing with each other. I mean, I think this is just one of those things where I guess I have to see this. I'm not really sold. I don't know.
Why aren't you sold?
One, Little Mama, I'm like, I need to see something.
Sure, I get that.
I mean, she had one hit song, and not that I'm hating on her. I'm just saying.
No, I get it. I get it.
I guess I don't feel it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I need something meatier.
I am a sucker for a good mother-daughter film. And this sounds like it explores the dilemmas and the dynamics of a contentious mother-daughter relationship. Okay. And as a woman, that always will interest me, right? Not that I have a contentious relationship with my mother, but I know some that do.
Yeah.
And so I hope that they really deliver like a layered story, a layered performance where it's not just surfacey, but we're digging deep into like the root of the problem, and we're, you know, sharing some deep stuff here.
Well, I think that depends on Coke Daniels and where he goes with it. Since he wrote and
Right.
directed,
Yeah.
I think he needs to mold these folks into doing what his vision is. And hopefully it is sort of from
Hopefully
the
it is
perspective.
that. Hopefully
yeah.
it's layered.
Yeah, from the perspective
For
you're
this
talking
sort
about.
of story
I mean,
plot, it needs to be layered. And I'm not mad that Wendy, Raquel Welch, and Little Mama are playing these roles, because what I know of them, they are fiery type of women and personalities. And so I keeping hope alive that that fire translates into a good story.
and I hope so too. To
Yeah.
be honest, I wish him success. This is just another black film that I would love to see go further and maybe even make a career for Little Mama. She's in a lot of things today.
Same here. I low-key like believe in her. I think she's so misunderstood though.
I think so too.
Ever since she stepped foot on that stage with Jay-Z and Alicia, like, come on, bro, you don't do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we should discount her altogether.
Well, that's what's her personality.
Yeah.
I think that's what got her in the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So moving on to exclusives. Blackfilm exclusively sat with director of this new movie called Escape from Pretoria. His name is Francis Annan, and he, talked about the motivation for the movie. The movie is based on two white South African men / political activists who were imprisoned in 1978 for working covert operations for Nelson Mandela's ANC, which is the African National Congress.
Right.
And it's based on a real life story.
story.
It's inspired by a true story. And not so fun fact is that, Pretoria prison is the same prison where former South African President Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years.
That's very true.
And we both watched the trailer.
Yes, we did both watch the trailer. I noticed that it's well played. Daniel Radcliffe from, as you guys all know, Harry Potter stories in the series, he plays a character who seems to encompass the character that sort of says a lot without words. I think he's strong in his position in this movie, and I think he brings out the South African accent very well. I mean, it's incredible. I know he's an English citizen, but that accent was really hard to do.
It's not an easy one.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one to take on. And I'm curious to see how, is he going to do such a good job that I don't even see Harry Potter? That I see Daniel Radcliffe
That's a great
from
point.
a whole, different perspective. So I'm interested in seeing that. And he plays the main character.
Yes, he does.
And so the book, which was written by one of the escapees, Tim Jenkins, it's also based on the book. And so I'm curious to see, because in the trailer they show how he made keys out of
Right,
wood.
Yeah.
And then that's what he used to escape.
Yeah, brothers, think about that. You need to
Okay.
get your game up.
Right. Like carving out wooden keys. Like, how do you even know that it's going to work?
Well, not only that, but is it strong enough to go through those metal doors? And
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of extending your imagination in this, and that's kind of good.
Yeah.
Again, thinking it from a perspective that these white nationalists for the ANC under Nelson Mandela, they were still adamant about getting out of this prison and doing the work that they had and proving their point. And I think that's important. I think that was the reason why they tried to find by all means necessary to get out of this prison. And that translates into a very good film, an epic film for me, because it shows the passion of what they were doing and to end apartheid in South Africa.
I thoroughly enjoyed the trailer.
I enjoyed the trailer too, and not just because it speaks to apartheid,
Yeah.
but it's also showing that there wasn't, everybody pitched in to help in apartheid.
It took a village.
It took a village.
Literally.
And now we are seeing the fruits of that labor now going to South Africa. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, again, just going back to the trailer, it's one of those race against time thrillers, because just as I was watching it, like my heart was pounding the entire time. Just listen, the power of a good trailer is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the epithet of this is to think about the prison itself. This was an all-white prison. Mandela came in the end of this. So these guys were just in there. There were no black men. So this is interesting how this developed.
Yeah.
This is something that I would watch. I would
Absolutely.
definitely watch.
I'm game for anything that's based on a true story. I think that we need to see more of those.
And telling a story that relates to us.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Blackfilms also sat down with Winston Duke in reference to Spencer Confidential, directed by Peter Berg. This movie stars Mark Wahlberg, Winston Duke, Alan Arkin, Elisa Schlesinger. This is a drawback from the 80s version of Spencer for Hire. And this is more of a comedic action, comedy, action, drama action, I guess, from the 80s version. The 80s version was much more serious than this one, but I find that they very much so play off of each other. Winston Duke is like the serious character, and Mark Wahlberg is the funny guy, along with Alan Arkin. But Winston Duke is actually stretching his wings out.
I like that. So he's moving away from Marvel.
Right.
He's stretching his wings beyond Marvel, and this is something completely different. I mean, you know, he also started 9 Days, which was a Sundance film that I think Sony Pictures picked up. So
Exactly right.
he's moving away from Marvel, and I think he's doing a really good job spreading his creative wings, and it comes across very authentically to me.
Yes, his portfolio is getting a little bit wider. He's casting his net out.
Yes.
And I think that we need to embrace this particular role because it gives him a little range.
Yeah.
In this sort of remake, he plays Hawk, previously played by Avery Brooks. Originally, the character for Mark Wahlberg was Robert ERIK. I don't know if you ever watched that.
I didn't watch the original.
I watched it religiously. I thought it was great. And the remake, I want to see how they take this. I know it's more comedic, and I think it's more happily played, if you will, because the other one was a little bit more serious. It was like more snarky. It wasn't slapstick, you know what I mean?
Not as comedic as
Not
this one.
Not as comedic as this
Okay.
one. Well, another part that was interesting about this, that the old one, the previous version, was filmed in Massachusetts. That brought the state $50 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Okay.
So I'm curious to see if they're going to let them do this again. Mark was being from Boston, but they're going to do this again, and I want to see how it exactly plays out.
I can't wait to see that. It's actually a movie. I originally thought it was a series on Netflix.
So did
but
I.
you clarified and said it was a movie.
I thought it was too, when I had to look at that.
So I like the duo. I like Mark Wahlberg and Winston Duke playing side by side.
Yeah, I don't want to be tongue-in-cheek, but it's a little different.
I mean, sure, yeah. And there's this poster. You see them side by side, and you can see the,
Yeah, you can see the
difference
difference.
is drastic. Yeah. So again, Netflix, Spencer Confidential. It looks good.
Absolutely. Check
Yeah.
them out on Netflix.
And so, you know, our favorite part of this video cast is the reviews.
The reviews, yes.
The-
Finally,
right.
yes.
So we had the pleasure of attending the movie screening for the movie The Banker.
The Banker.
And that is starring Samuel L. Jackson, Anthony Mackie, Nia Long.
Nia Long.
And, right, she looked good in that.
I like that girl.
Right. And the screening was brought to us by Robert L. Jenkins and Marshall Mitchell. Big thank you to them for making
Thank you
that
very
available
much. Yes.
to us. It was somewhat of not so much of a full house. I think it could have been more people in attendance just because it was that sort of movie that everyone needs to see. And by everyone, I mean all African Americans
Yes.
need to be present and see that.
Well, we got to keep in mind with the current state of situation,
Yeah.
the coronavirus and such.
That's right.
Yeah, so
That's right.
it wasn't a packed house, but we were there representing. I think the few that were there represented very well. We had a question and answer actually
At
afterwards.
the end, yeah. That was awesome, by the way.
But the film itself, to me, which I didn't know the story, which is
Neither did
another
I.
interesting
Yeah.
thing. These two black men go into business with each other post 1968, where we had the lifting of racial laws in terms of real estate, redlining and such. They managed to buy 121 properties, I think, at one time. I think that was it. Amassing a lot of money, and I think they took on the challenge, and they took on the challenge with partners. Again, going back to the fact that we all had help doing some of the freedom fighting that we did in this country and in Africa itself. I think they had a lot of gall to do that business and that time in place. And
Absolutely.
I'm interested in how you thought it went in terms of them buying property and then going into.
So it's about two African American entrepreneurs, right? So Bernard Garrett and Joe Morris.
Joe Morris.
They made a bold and audacious move to buy real estate in white-only neighborhoods.
And move black folks in.
And move black folks in. Now, if you think about that era, we were segregated.
Literally.
Literally. So, you know,
Alive.
you had white neighborhoods and you had black neighborhoods.
Yes.
And, you know, when African Americans started trickling into white neighborhoods, we saw what that looked like.
Hide your pearls.
Okay? So here are two black men who are purchasing real estate.
Yeah.
Loads and loads.
I dig it. I mean, I'm all for entrepreneurship. I like the fact that they were doing business properly. I think they were smart about it.
Yes. Yes.
And they were prudent. They had some challenges and they figured out a way to overcome them. And that's more important. It showed their ingenuity. It showed their resilience. They showed that their willingness to get it done and to be successful was paramount.
And it showed how forward-thinking they were. In addition to real estate, you know, apartment buildings, they bought banks. They bought buildings that banks were tenants in. Like, let's think about that for 2 seconds.
Right.
Again, in that era, two black men purchasing the buildings that white-only banks inhabited.
Well, I mean, the theory behind that is, in my opinion, is, hey, you won't loan me the money? Okay, I'm gonna buy the building. You
How
live
about
in it.
that? That was such a boss move. That was such a boss move to me. And the fact that I didn't even know that this story existed prior to this movie is really telling. And in the Q&A, I mean, I learned that there was some controversy with the coming out of this movie because some people felt uncomfortable
Well, yeah, I mean,
with the truth of it all.
people are gonna feel uncomfortable, and I think we need more stories like this to make people uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, the more we have these stories, the more it's the norm. And I'm glad this story is coming out and other stories hopefully to follow. We have a story to tell, and I think we have been so long that we haven't seen or heard these stories. And I'm sure you've heard them when you were younger. I've heard them when I was younger. I think we need to hear more stories so that other people in the world can understand our place in America.
For sure. I think Samuel L. Jackson did a great job. I mean, he literally can do no wrong. Anthony Mackie held his own so well. And Nia Long, the role, the instrumental role that she played.
I'm biased, though.
I mean, of course. But, you know, I loved seeing that this woman, his wife, Anthony Mackie's wife, Gerard Butler, played a very pivotal role in kind of laying the groundwork to set up, you know, what happened. The fact that she's the one that introduced him to Samuel L. Jackson's character, and that's what set things in motion, I think.
Right, it did, and she also played the role that she had to play in terms of the business going forward. So she was a pivotal part of that business as much as Anthony Mackie and Samuel Jackson.
And so, I mean, Matt Steiner, and so, okay,
Matt
it's 1960s, right? So two black men can't show up as the owners in person.
Right.
So they had to recruit a white man.
Which wasn't unusual. That happened a lot.
Right. So they had to recruit a white man to be the face of the business while they played the janitor and the driver.
Yeah.
And so that was a tough pill to swallow, but
I think it is.
You got to do what you got to do. And I love that they were that forward thinking in the sense of, what's important is getting this business off the ground.
Yes.
It's helping our people by any means necessary, and we're going about this in a legal way.
Right, and he was very smart. Anthony Mackie's character was very intelligent. He knew his math. He knew the business.
Yeah, in and out. Yeah,
in and out, and he taught the business. So that's actually even better. I mean, that's how well he knew his business and the business of real estate and banking. So I'm basically numbers. For me, Anthony Mackie is my hero in this movie.
Absolutely, 110%. And I love that before the movie started, Marshall Mitchell spoke about how awesome it is to have a movie about a bank that doesn't include or involve a black man robbing it. It doesn't include anything violent. It's just an honest, solid story about, you know, the success that these two men reached.
Our story.
At our story. And the fact that those moves they made is what led to the Housing Act.
Right, 1968.
Right.
Correct.
Oh, I think everyone should see it young, more importantly, young.
Yes,
Youngins,
very much so.
young men,
Please go
young
and
black
see it.
women and young black men. Go see this.
If you don't go see this, you're doing yourself a disjustice. It is very important. Seriously, very important.
Yeah.
Because, like she said, there was no violence, there was no drug dealing, there was nothing in this negative, and this shows that also that we are woven in the thread of an American history.
Hear, hear. And this will be available on Apple Plus TV sometime in March. So definitely look out for that. Google, figure it out. This is a must-see.
Yes, must.
So with that concludes this episode of Ellen at Blackfilm with guest co-host Hakeem Graham. Thank you for tuning in. To find out more, definitely check out blackfilm.com. Thank you for watching and see you next time.